I'm from a small farming community in northwestern Ohio. The town's about 3,500 people, and it's one of those communities where everybody goes to church every Sunday. You're probably familiar with them. My family was no different. We went to church every Sunday. Sometime when I was young, I came to know Christ, and I don't know when it was. It was one of those things. It was more of a gradual experience, but eventually I got from chair number 1 to chair number 2, and chair number 2 is where I was for a long time. I lived my life for myself. I didn't even know that God had some kind of a plan for me. I didn't know that there's something out there that He wanted me to do, and I was definitely living for myself. So I went to college, and about when I was done, I decided that the right thing for me was to go and get an MBA. So there was a school I wanted to go to, so I applied. This was what I wanted to do. So I was on the waiting list and on the waiting list and on the waiting list for admissions. And in the final round of cuts, guess what? I got cut. This was definitely God. He knew that if I got that MBA, I would be a non-family man. I would fail as a husband. I'd be a workaholic, and it's not what I wanted. So I decided to go to Plan B. Plan B was to go get a job. So at that point, Jody and I were engaged, and her only criteria for a job was to be more than 3 hours away from home. So so I started looking, and I looked, and I looked, and I looked. And I probably applied for about 100 jobs over the course of about 5 months. Couldn't find a job. So one day I came home from work, and my mom said, "Hey, you got an interview." So I'm like, "Okay, where's the interview at?" She's like, "Well, it's in Idaho." I'm like, "Mom, this isn't funny. I've been trying to get a job for 5 months now. It's not funny, you messing with us." She's like, "No, it's really in Idaho." I'm like, "Well, I didn't apply to anything in Idaho." She's like, "Well, you must have, because next week you're going there." So I'm like, "Okay, all right. So what's the company?" She's like, "Well, I don't know." I'm like, "Well, where's your contact name and phone number and stuff?" She's like, "Well, I don't have one." I'm like, "Well, what do you have?" She's like, "Well, I have a number for a travel agency that you're supposed to call and set up your plane flight." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" She's like, "No, I thought you knew what you're applying for." I'm like, "I don't." So I went and I set up the travel and stuff. It took me probably about 2 days to figure out what I actually applied for. Well, I meant to apply for the Pittsburgh position, and I ended up applying for the Idaho position. Yeah. So I flew out here, and I said, "Okay, if nothing else, I'll get a good tour of Yellowstone." And the farthest west I had been was Iowa before that. So I ended up getting the job and moved out here. And after I was, Jody and I were going to get married 3 months after I moved out here. So what do I do for that 3 months? Well, being the guy together, I said, "Okay, the thing I'm going to do is I'm going to finish my basement. I'm going to put a lot of time and effort into it. I'm going to make a lot of money when I sell the house." Yeah, right. So I go and I start finishing the basement for myself. And then I was involved in a lot of sin. There's a lot of issues in my life. And I was pretty much miserable. Things weren't going so hot. So it actually got to a point where I said, "Okay, God, I'm yours now. I've hit rock bottom. I need you. I want to live for you." And that's when He started changing me. About that time's when we met Cody and Katie, and we were good friends. We went to church together, and God started working on all of us. We were getting changed like crazy. We were being convicted of sins. We were doing daily Bible studies. Our lives had changed, and God was teaching us a lot. And that's when Cody, about a year after that, Cody actually started a Bible study. And guess where the Bible study was located? In my basement. That was God using me in my selfish desires to do His will. And we did the Bible study thing. We had about 10 to 15 people there a week, and it was going fine. About a year after that, I guess everybody that was involved in the study was an Idaho Falls transplant, which means you don't know anybody, you don't have any family here, you don't know about the community, you don't know anything, and that's what we all were. About a year after the study started, God went crazy. And we ended up having about 40, 45 people in my basement a night. And it went from 15 or 20 to about 40 in about two and a half months. And God blew us away. And we said, okay, God, we know that there's something you want us to do. What is this? So we started praying. We started praying that God would reveal his plan to us, that God would let us know what he wanted us to do. And he did. He said, okay, we want you guys to go start a church. And we were a bunch of mid-20-year-olds, anything from 20 to 30 for the most part. And we felt totally inadequate to do something like that. We said, we can't do this. We don't know anybody in the community. All our friends are at the study, and this isn't going to work. So we said, how can we make this work? So we said, the only way we can do this is if we get help. So we ended up writing some letters to various churches that we respected, that we knew had done church plants in the past, but we didn't send them out. I don't know why we didn't send them out. We just sat on them. We sat on them for two and a half months. We had everything ready to go, and it just didn't happen. And that was definitely God. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths." And that's exactly what he did. He directed us.